Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
And it's 6:07, picking up on a busy Monday morning. We had a lot on this EU trade deal. Momentarily, we're going to talk to Daniel Turner of Power of the Future. He's got to be a happy man, right? I bet he didn't get any sleep after this deal last night. 6:35, John Myrick running for governor of Maryland. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva, latest Russiagate revelations. Drip, drip, drip. 7:35, E.J. Antoni from Heritage on the economic impact of this trade deal. And then 8:05, Sean Spicer. A ton of stuff to talk to Sean about. It's Larry O'Connor here with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Just played a little bit of President Trump as he was announcing this deal. And again, cannot overstate the impact of this. And it has been confirmed by the head of the EU that, there really aren't any U.S. concessions. This was really, we were trying to rebalance things because it was so imbalanced. But the top line of this entire trade deal is the European Union agreeing to purchase $750 billion in various energy products from the American energy industry. And that makes this man very happy. Power the Future, Daniel Turner. Dan, did you write this out? What did you do here? Did you sell your soul? Are you a wizard, Daniel?
I was in the room the entire time, Larry. This was all my doing. So you're welcome, America.
This looks like it. No, this is a very big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And if you recall back in the 2024 campaign, when he was running for re-election, President Trump mentioned a couple of times, including in his debate with then Vice President Harris, that the European Union had spent more money buying Russian natural gas and oil than they had given to Ukraine in their war against Russia. So I think that's the biggest trade imbalance that it changes, is that we've been allowing the EU through third-party mediaries, the South Koreans, the Turks. We've been allowing them to continue to buy Russian energy. And then you add on top of that the Biden administration, which had a flat-out ban on LNG exports. We're correcting a lot of wrongs here. We're making the European Union buy from their allies, not buy from their enemy, Russia. And America now is in a selling mode, selling our energy to the world, not in a Joe Biden going to Saudi Arabia, fist-bumping the crown prince, begging him to produce more oil. So it's a very different dynamic power shift.
So important, Daniel, to frame it with the backdrop of the Ukraine-Russia war, because you articulated it perfectly. They were buying Russian oil and gas. European countries were, thus funding Putin's war on Ukraine, and then they would turn around and they would punish us. They would compel America to fund the Ukrainian war machine on that side of the war equation. So Europe was forcing, and they spent a little bit of money, but nothing like what they were forcing us to do with their international guilt trips. That we were responsible for making sure that Ukraine was protected, while at the same time they were spending all their money with the bad guy in the equation, the person that they were telling us is the next Hitler.
And that's what I think President Trump realizes that the last administration, they knew, but they just pretended to ignore. And it's that energy is the most important commodity in geopolitics and world peace, in world war, et cetera. Yes, energy makes goods cheap. If you're, buying eggs, if you're buying laminate flooring because your basement flooded, if you're buying anything, cheap energy makes cheap life. But if you're using energy as a hedge on Russia getting powerful, on Iran getting rich and powerful, on Venezuela getting rich and powerful, so if we can use energy to make our enemies weaker and poorer, we're making the world a lot more stable and a lot more peaceful. And I think that's a huge power difference that the Biden administration just ignored completely.
Julie, did you tell Daniel Turner about my flooded basement?
Oh, I just chose that example at random of people buying things.
Right now.
Daniel, I think that this looks to be just so commonsensical, a return to sanity, and sort of it does come off. I am not suggesting this, but it does come off as, oh gosh, this was easy. What criticism? I mean, again, it just makes so much sense. But what criticism is there for this deal? Has there been any? And what's the reasoning if there has been criticism?
Well, there will be, because as we know, the most important symptom of Trump derangement syndrome is that everything this administration does is bad and wrong.
Right.
And this is where there's sadly even still a decent number of quote unquote Republicans who have long championed positions for 30, 40 years. But when Trump enables it, suddenly they change shifts. Go back to the first administration. The first time he had a major win, which was moving the embassy back to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv, Republicans who hold that position for 40 years suddenly disagreed with it and said it was wrong. So there are going to be people who will come out today. Look, Democrats don't work on weekends, right? We know that. So no one really knows this happened yet. But as they get to their offices this morning on Capitol Hill, their staffers will put together talking points to explain why this is bad, why it makes America weaker. They will come up with one reason. But if you're in a power state, an energy state like Pennsylvania that is now going to sell more energy, if you're in even a very blue state that has a lot of energy like New Mexico or Colorado, how do you find disappointment in this? How do you find problems? Because you are now selling more of your product on the world, and if anything, you are using, you're creating an environment to produce more of this. I guess, Julie, the best answer is they're going to pivot back to this is bad for climate change. And the climate change people have been quiet for a while, so they need a win.
That is exactly what I was going to say. You're asking a hypothetical or rhetorical, what are they going to complain about? They're going to complain about green energy. And although green energy was not explicitly part of this deal, it is in a sense because it wasn't mentioned. The Biden administration or John Kerry or Hillary Clinton, they go to EU, make a deal. They come back with a bunch of government subsidies for green energy solutions that don't work. Here, President Trump actually did address that in a bit of a backhanded way. Cut 10 here if you could, Jeff. Listen.
Wind doesn't work. You need subsidy for wind, and energy should not need subsidy. With energy, you make money. You don't lose money. But more important than that is it ruins the landscape. It kills the birds. They're noisy.
He talked about being at a golf course and looking out on the horizon there in Scotland and seeing all these windmills, thinking what a shame it was. And that's such a smart point, though. It's like, why do we in America suddenly approach energy solutions by what can the government do to go into debt for generations to pay for energy? He said, why should you do that? Energy should be a money-making endeavor. You should actually make money on energy. Daniel, seriously, were you close to ecstatic when you heard something like that from the president?
Well, you know what? These are just principles that we have long espoused that are common sense, and they used to be very bipartisan. And more people are just going back to them. President Trump has always been an energy champion, but it's great to hear him say these things with such clarity on the world stage, especially in the European Union. They have embraced wind and solar aggressively, and they pay 3 times what we pay for electricity. And a lot of the European Union is in flat-out contraction. The German economy is in contraction. And the reason why is because German manufacturing, that vaulted and celebrated German manufacturing, cannot afford to operate its factories because wind and solar are so expensive that they are closing up shop. So
in fact,
when does the Europe...
Yeah, from where I sit in Maryland, Europe has now moved further away from the green energy agenda and embraced what works and what makes sense and what makes money, more so than the governor of Maryland has. That's
they have to,
where we are.
Because they can't afford it anymore. And California will follow suit, and even the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, as she's preparing for re-election, has worked with the Trump administration to build a natural gas pipeline from Pennsylvania through New York State to deliver natural gas. So they are returning back to these policies because green just has not worked. It's very expensive. It's intermittent. And it requires a tremendous amount of subsidies. And as President Trump said, it's just flat out ugly.
Just to be clear, Daniel, because you are incredibly influential and you were there in spirit, but you weren't literally in the room for this negotiation, right?
No, I was not. I was literally on my farm in rural Virginia working, but I was listening to it with bated breath.
There you go. and he's a happy man. He is incredibly influential because he makes sense, and it's logically
Yes.
good policy. It's powered the future. Daniel Turner's the man. Thank you, Daniel. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you all. Thank you.
Coming up, the winning kept going over the weekend. This is actually a great story that we're going to tell you all about what appears to be potentially the end of one of the most totalitarian, left-wing, Orwellian censorship regimes in Washington, D.C., a little group called Media Matters. We'll give you those details in a moment. First, though, it's 6:15 WMAL.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
The New York Times had a profile over the weekend about what appears to be the collapse of a left-wing organization called Media Matters for America. You may have heard that name, Media Matters. They have basically led the American left censorship regime. They invented cancel culture here in America for any conservative political analyst. They tried to bankrupt Fox News. They engineer advertising boycotts for conservative websites and for talk radio. They tried to take Rush Limbaugh off the air and all of talk radio, really. They were very well funded for quite some time. We'll get into those details about their origin story, but according to this New York Times profile, they are now facing bankruptcy with a near total collapse of the organization. And cherry on top, Julie, it's because they face huge legal bills from none other than Mark Elias's law firm. Mark Elias, of course, the lawyer who has utilized lawfare to go after conservatives and Republicans, mostly on voting issues and making sure that, non-citizens can vote and stuff, and trying to keep any conservative, proper. Mark Elias was the guy who worked with the Clinton campaign to create the Steele dossier and Russian collusion and all that. And apparently the legal bills that the Media Matters had to rack up from Mark Elias because of some lawsuits, we'll get into those details in a sec, were so high that it's Mark Elias's law firm that's putting him out of business. It's beautiful.
Larry, tell me, have you ever been featured by Media Matters? I have.
I have, absolutely.
Yep. What they do is they sort of have this, or what they at this point used to do, is they have this army of very low-paid, low-level staffers who just watch and listen. Like, they would listen to the Rush Limbaugh show. Yeah. They would listen to guests, and if anyone said something that they perceived as off-color or controversial,
or
they
conservative,
would blast it out. Or conservative.
Not even controversial.
Exactly.
It's conservative.
Yeah.
Andrew Breitbart used to refer to them as their flying monkeys. The David Brock's flying monkeys sitting in a cubicle listening to every syllable of Fox News and Rush Limbaugh.
Yep.
And then they would create an internet paper trail, Julie, that said, they're racist and they're this and they're that and they're that. And it worked.
It did.
It worked.
Not every time.
Not every time, but it worked. No, I've got a paper trail there. They were, by the way, it came out of the 2000 election after George W. Bush won. The left regrouped. They got money from a guy named George Soros. The money and a couple of other major donors. The money was engineered by a guy named John Podesta, and they created certain groups to target certain institutions in this country. The one big overarching group in Washington, D.C. was a group called Center for American Progress. It's still there. Neera Tanden, who I believe was one of the people using the auto pen in the Biden administration, she was John Podesta's handpicked successor at Center for American Progress. She left to go to the White House. Now she's back at Center for American Progress. But one of those groups was called Media Matters, founded by David Brock, with John Podesta's guidance and with money from George Soros. And may I say, just for the record, I've talked about this publicly and I will continue to, a board member for this company that owns this radio station, Cumulus Media, is also on the board of Media Matters, which is an absolute outrage that the company that employs us. Now, listen, the fact that we're able to talk about what we want to talk about on the show is good, but I hate the fact. I do hate it, and I'm sorry if I get, in trouble with the executives of our company, but I hate the fact that a board member on this company, Cumulus Media, that champions and celebrates and lives and die off of free speech and free expression, also has a guy sitting on the board of this totalitarian censorship organization called Media Matters for America. What happened here to bring on the downfall is that it appears, and I've looked at the evidence, and I believe that this is what happened. Media Matters engineered and created a false impression on the Twitter platform, on the X platform, to make it look as though X was linking linking white nationalists and anti-Semites on the platform who were expressing their odious views, but, First Amendment protected views nonetheless, linking their odious views with sponsors on the platform.
That's right.
They would manipulate the algorithms and patterns, and I'm not smart enough to know how they did it.
Yeah,
but they manipulated these things to create one moment where somebody's really bad views showed up right next to McDonald's or something, or Disney or something like that. They would then take a screenshot of it, publish it, and say, "Look, Twitter is linking this great company with Nazis." And of course, it was designed to put pressure on those companies to take all their advertising money out of X. So Elon Musk sued them for that.
And they did.
They did. Yeah.
Yeah. So Elon Musk sued.
Elon Musk sued, and they've been having to defend themselves. The lawsuits are still going on, and the legal bills to protect against this lawsuit have nearly bankrupted the organization. It's another thing that we should appreciate Elon Musk for, because that it's like he is, but he fights. It's another one of these things, and this is a Media Matters terrorized conservative organizations and conservatives, and really was effective in shutting people up. So this is such incredible news. And don't forget, I mean, you might think, oh, well, this is just something that happens in Washington. No, I mean, it really, these people who have a platform and stand up, for instance, for parent rights and they wanted to dismantle those people. They wanted to harm those people. They wanted to shut those people up. And, for people like me during COVID, yes,
I was inspired by people who stood up. And they wanted to take that away from the average people.
For my time that I worked with Andrew Breitbart before his untimely passing in 2012, those 3 years, I would say half of it was focused on Media Matters and how totalitarian and censorious they were, and how anti-First Amendment and anti-American this approach was. Andrew Breitbart and Rush Limbaugh right now, somewhere beyond the great horizon, are laughing their butts off at Media Matters going bankrupt. It's 6:24.
Coming up, we're going to talk to John Myrick. He is a Republican, and he's running for Maryland governor. Keep it here at 6:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:37 now. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your morning routine here on a very busy one at that, as we get up to speed on so much from this weekend. We'll start at 7:05 with Joe DeGeneva, who will give us the latest fallout and additional revelations on the Russiagate scandal. 7:35 brings us E.J. Antoni on an economic perspective of this EU trade deal. And 8:05, Sean Spicer on that same trade deal, but also some other things in the news. Honestly, he can talk about Russia. He can talk about anything. He's Sean Spicer, for crying out loud. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Joining us right now is going to be sweet music to Marylanders' ears, because we're looking. Sorry? Okay. Joining us now is John Myrick. He is the Republican running for Maryland governor. First one that I know of to officially put his name out there. Good morning, John. We're going to have to call him back.
Yeah.
Oh, that was an operator talking to me.
I heard.
Although it's a recorded voice.
Yes. Yes, I thought John sounded not like John.
There you go. I was thrown off by a little voice there, and it was some sort of disconnected opera. By the way, have you ever noticed lately here in America, when you get an automated telephone voice talking to you, the number is disconnected or what? First of all, isn't it funny how it's always been a woman's voice from the dawn of time?
I think the woman who does a lot of those, she's now on Reels and TikTok, and she actually has exposed herself, and
fascinating.
and she has a very pleasant voice.
We'll dive deeper into that because I had an observation at the airport, at Reagan Airport yesterday about that I want to talk about. But let's get to John Myrick. He is a Republican running for governor of Maryland, and that is sweet relief to Republicans or any Marylander who is hoping for an alternative to Wes Moore. John, thanks for joining us.
Larry, thanks for having me on this morning.
Now, some people might say, hey, it's kind of early, isn't it? I mean, it's about a year from the primary. But you tell me, why are you announcing now? And what's your plan between now and Election Day?
Well, I mean, we're 10 months out from the primaries here in Maryland, and we decided when we decided we were going to do this that we were going to enter early so that we could build the proper structure across the state of Maryland to do this and do this properly. We've been attending events all over Maryland this weekend. I started out Friday night out in McHenry, out in Garrett County. Saturday morning, I was down in Princess Anne in Somerset County and spent the weekend down there at events. Ended up last night in Harford County at an event last night there. So we're
Great.
Making it a point to enter and hit all the counties and all the appropriate places early so that people know that they actually have a choice in the 26th election.
What are you hearing from voters? Because it sounds to me like Wes Moore is already focused on running against J.D. Vance or whatever Republican decides to run for president in 2028. He clearly has national ambitions, and meanwhile, Maryland is suffering not only economically, but also, listen, you're the former sheriff of Harford County. We got a major crime issue in Maryland, and also just sort of the degradation of what we used to take for granted as basic civil society. Wes Moore has sort of overseen the deterioration of that in the state, and I would love a law and order man to come back and set things straight.
No, and you're absolutely right, Larry. And I hear that pretty much what you just said is what we hear from people, Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliated voters from across the state. They are fed up with the Moore administration and with the Democrat supermajority in our General Assembly, and they are tired of the state of Maryland reaching deeper into their pockets and seeing no improvements or changes in their lives. They want a governor who actually wants to govern Maryland and who can govern Maryland for Marylanders.
You know, we're seeing a lot of people leave the state of Maryland, both Republicans and Democrats. What is your message to people? If you elect me, the state will get better, living will get better, your life will get better. How do you convey that to voters?
Well, and we hear that from voters all the time. I understand that we lost about 30,000 people last year out of the state of Maryland because of economic policies of this administration, quite frankly. And I tell voters all over the state that it will get better once I'm sitting in the governor's seat and once our lieutenant governor running mate, Dr. Brenda Cham from out in Washington County, is working with me as our next lieutenant governor. I asked them to hold on for a little while longer because we will work to roll back taxes here in Maryland. We will work to make things safer, and we will work to improve the public education system without bankrupting the state of Maryland. And we have plans to do all that.
Yeah, to run against Wes Moore, you're going to have to sort of work on his ability to dissemble the facts and lie. He lies.
Yeah, well, I was good. Thank you for being clear and blunt on that. That's exactly what he does every time he speaks.
The latest one is, I've only raised taxes on the top 94%. I love 94 is a pretty random number there. That's a lot of taxpayers in Maryland, actually, and he promised not to raise taxes at all.
Yes, exactly, including me and you, I'm sure. By the way, there, I just, it amazes me every time he speaks about his record. You're right, he lies. Yes, on paper he raised taxes on the top 6% of Marylanders, but he increased fees by the most ridiculous amount in Maryland history. I mean, it costs $191 now to renew your tags here in Maryland for a year, when it costs $38 to do that in Virginia and $32 in Pennsylvania. Two states who are running surpluses in their budgets, one ran by a Republican, one by a Democrat governor. So it's not a party issue. It's a competency issue. And, of course, when you continually fail at your job, you have no alternative but to bend the truth.
Yeah. And he's got a willing media, actually. They're rooting for him. They're all part of the equation. That does make it hard, but, you've got a good path to follow with Larry Hogan. He won 2 terms, and so I guess you're hoping to sort of reignite what Hogan did, because I want to be honest with people. You got to run and reach some Democrats. You got to reach people who would probably voted for Westmore 4 years ago. Hogan was good at doing that. What is that part of your strategy?
It absolutely is. I mean, as you said, Governor Hogan was very effective, especially in his first campaign for governor. And he was able to reach across to Democrat and unaffiliated voters and get his message out to them that made sense. We tell people everywhere we go, the problems that Maryland faces right now are not partisan issues. They are Maryland issues. Every Marylander, regardless of your political affiliation, pays ridiculous taxes. Every Marylander wants good public schools but doesn't have them. Every Marylander wants to feel safe walking down the street at night but doesn't.
Yep.
These are all issues across the political spectrum. And the fact that this governor has failed abjectly in every one of those 3 major categories gives us the opportunity to get our message out across Maryland to explain to them that there is a better way of doing things. There is someone who wants to govern Maryland as a Marylander and who understands the problems that Marylanders face.
All right, we'll be watching the campaign. We got a little bit of time before the primary, so I know we'll have some further conversations. In the meantime, it's John Myrick, that's with a Y, John Myrick for mdgovernor.org. That's a mouthful. John Myrick for mdgovernor.org. Thanks, John.
Thanks a lot for having me on. I look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
Same here. 645 WMAL. It's 651 now. O'Connor and Company. Hey, so I was mentioning women's voices. So women's voices have always been used as the recording, right? Like, at the tone, the time will be 7:45. It's always, like, remember when we were kids used to call time? Remember that? It's interesting, isn't it? That it's women's voices? Especially, you're going to have to turn your microphone on if you want to talk on the radio.
Oh, sorry.
It's literally the first thing we learned.
I have been talking to you for 30 seconds.
See, that's the thing, women's voice, right?
I was wondering why you
there are
asking.
studies done about this, that like if there's a like an advertisement on the radio, it's like people tend to pay attention if it's a man's voice over a woman's voice. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying this psychologically how it works. All right. Well, that's still. I was at the airport yesterday. I was flying back from Southern California last night. And have you been to the airport recently where they've got like this sort of like cattle gateway thing when you're clearing TSA, leaving the airport, like you land and you go through and you like go through the green door and then they shut it behind you and you're waiting, right? Yeah, it's like a vapor lock. It's like an air pressure chamber, right? That you're coming in off the space shuttle. Well, not only is it a woman's voice that says, please walk forward and stop and stand, but I kid you not, the woman has like a foreign accent. It's really weird.
That is weird.
They deliberately chose a woman with a and when I say foreign, I mean not American sounding accent.
Okay, but what kind of accent? Is it German? Because I listen to Germans. They scare me a little.
It's Asian.
Oh.
I feel like it's Asian, or it's funny. I said, I said to Meredith, I said, why did they do this? Why didn't they get somebody with like a DC or accent or a Mid-Atlantic accent, someone regional? And then she said, "Is that Asian or is it Eastern European?" It's very hard to discern. And then I was thinking to myself, wouldn't it have been hilarious if Trump recorded it? Welcome to Washington, walk forward.
Maybe it's Melania.
That's what I said. I said that could be Melania Trump doing the recording.
I tell you,
it's so good to have you here.
Russian, German, suitcase? Eastern European. I listen. I do what I'm told.
That's right.
Maybe that's it.
You will walk forward. You will not ask questions. You will do what we say.
Exactly.
But it was just such an odd. Has anyone else noticed that? And if anyone's listening that works at the airport, please, or TSA, what was the thought process? Because this is a new decision. This is the brand new exit thing that they have.
The British are very good about queuing. Maybe they should have done a British accent.
Maybe that was it.
I listen to them too. I'm a bit.
But you would think you would pick a voice that everyone would pay attention to, and it's instead just another foreign voice that you ignore when you're walking through an airport. 6:53.